So one of the ways we're approaching coastal marine spatial planning out in the Pacific Islands is, as the federal co-lead Mike Tasato likes to say, it is our day job. It is what we do, and people tend to forget that ocean planning is part of everyday work, such as government-to-government consultations that happen on a regular basis, or permitting processes that we have to do for things like offshore aquaculture or our Hawaiian fish ponds. These are all ways that ocean planning is happening on a daily basis, and federal agencies and state agencies are already operating within that context. We have a couple examples from that region on one that the process has gone well, and another example where the process has been somewhat flawed. For the Hawaiian fish ponds, where the regulators realized that, as well as the fish pond practitioners realized that there was a big issue. And the issue was that it took a long time to get permits in place to do anything. If it was removing the aquatic flora to weeding the fish ponds, that could take years to get a permit. And if you needed to use a bulldozer to do anything, it would not be approved at all. And so the regulators talked to the stakeholders, who in this case were the native Hawaiian fish pond practitioners. And so the fish pond practitioners then formed a cohesive group to work together to bring information and to bring suggestions and information to the regulators. The regulators were the state and the federal agencies. They worked together to do things like programmatic analyses. And then from that, they were able to create programmatic permits and start doing their consultations. And so the analyses looked at several different potential activities that could occur within a fish pond, and then analyzed the different activities and categorized them into whether they're large-scale or small-scale kind of things. And now to do a small-scale activity, you can get that done within 30 days. You can get a permit within 30 days. And for a large-scale activity, there's a different form you would fill out, and that's now done within 60 to 90 days. This is an example of a process well done. The agencies met with their stakeholders, they did the analyses that needed to be done, and they came up with a solution in the permitting. Now I'll give you an example of how it's been done poorly. Had our plan been in place already, things may have gone very, very differently. But since nothing was in place, about 8 years ago or so, offshore wind farm developer said, I would like to do an offshore wind farm. He talked to various agency people at the state and the federal level. And when he did this, he talked to staff people. He also talked to the bosses. And they would send, the various people he would talk to would send him to different people to talk to, and everyone would provide him data, and it wasn't necessarily the same data. And he had all these different map layers then, and he'd hired a consultant to make all these different phone calls and got all this information from all these different sources. And then he put together a proposal, and it was submitted in January of 2015. And BOEM received these two unsolicited offshore lease requests. There is not a leasing process in place in Hawaii at this point. They are still BOEM is still trying to get the lease grids approved. And so then these federal agencies are receiving this permit application, and the data is from all these different disparate sources. The information is from several different sources. He doesn't know exactly what the permitting process needs to be because there isn't one in place. That is how it was done wrong. Had we had a mapping portal with a data portal next to it, a mapping interface with a data portal, he could have used data that was already approved by all the agencies. He would be able to look at where good places to stick his wind farm might be so that they don't interact with potential things like the Oahu to Kauai traditional canoe route, which was a problem that was brought up. And we would already have a permitting procedure in place that he could open up this plan and know who to talk to and know what the appropriate steps are before he goes to try to do his plan. And so that was kind of how it was done wrong. But it is our day job, and we're hoping to do it better because, frankly, that's what the taxpayers expect. They expect an open and transparent government, and they expect things to move smoothly and for time to not be wasted.